Hello YouTube, Logan Albright here, and I don't have a book review for you today because I've been busy preparing for one of my favorite annual events, National Novel Writing Month. As you may or may not know, every November there's an event called National Novel Writing Month in which people try to write novels, try to write 50,000 words within the space of 30 days, which is usually just the start of the novel, but it's a sizable enough chunk that you really feel like you've accomplished something when you do it. I've participated in National Novel Writing Month every year since 2009. I have written 12 novels, and this will be my 13th this year, lucky number 13. For the first 7 of those years, I self-published them on Amazon and made no money off of them. So for the previous 5 years, I've been holding on to them and trying to sell them to literary agents or publishers, and without success so far. So if you are a literary agent or a publisher and you're interested in my work, feel free to reach out. But I wanted to talk about the event because I think it's such an exciting and fun way to get into writing if you're interested in becoming a writer or interested in writing novels. It's just a wonderful way to get started. I had always wanted to write a novel, and I wasn't really sure how to go about it, and so I started using National Novel Writing Month as a tool to accomplish that, and I think it's so useful because you're really kind of putting pressure on yourself, and you're giving yourself a deadline, and you're giving yourself a daily goal, and that kind of motivation is really useful when it comes to writing a novel. It's really easy to start writing a novel. It's really, really hard to finish writing one. So committing to writing 50,000 words in 30 days is actually very difficult, but it's easier than if you just leave it open-ended and say, I'm going to write it whenever I feel inspired, or I'm going to write it whenever I have time. Because you never have time and you're never sufficiently inspired, and writing is like anything else. It's a job, it's work, it's 99% perspiration, and you have to sit down at the keyboard and do it. And National Novel Writing Month gives you a way to do that. And there's a community associated with it. You can talk to other people. The website is NaNoWriMo.org. That's National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo.org. And you can go and talk to people on the forums and get pep talks and get inspiration and get help you work past writer's block and see what other people are doing. It's a wonderful way to really motivate yourself to do it. And so what I thought I'd talk about a little bit is what I'm planning this year and how I prepare for the month, because you got to go in with some preparation, right? It's like anything else. If you just start cold, it's going to be a lot harder. And I always try to take at least a week to really prepare for what I'm going to do. So this year, like I said, is my 13th novel. I'm writing a horror novel this year called Forest Logic. It's about like a young tech entrepreneur who's become very rich and very successful very easily, and he's bored with that life now, and he wants to do something different. So he buys a cabin in the woods and goes to live out there among nature and try to, take a step back from it all and do something different. Unfortunately, it doesn't go quite the way he hoped. So that's sort of where I'm starting from as an idea, and I'm developing that plot. I came up with the idea, as I come up with all my ideas, when I was trying to write my previous book that I wrote last year. I find the best way to come up with ideas is when you're trying to finish something else. You will just get bombarded with ideas that try to get you to abandon what you're working on and start something new, because it's always so exciting to start something new. You have all these like fresh thoughts, and it's all potential, and everything's going to go well, and it's so much easier to do that than it is to slog through the 40,000th word of the thing that you've been plotting away at for the last 3 weeks, and you're tired of looking at it and tired of thinking about it, and all of your good ideas have sort of dried up, and you're now just trying to finish the thing. That's so much harder. And so I always find when I'm working on that 3rd week or 4th week of November, I start to just get bombarded with fresh ideas for things that I want to start, and I have to try to force myself to stay on track and not abandon what I'm doing to start something new. But those ideas are useful because you write them down and you remember them, and then when you're done with what you're working on, then you have them for next year. And so I'm never short of ideas. That is always very helpful. So I came up with this idea last year when I was writing, and I've been kind of sitting on it and ruminating about it for the last year. And it's really in the last month or a couple weeks that I've really started to try to flesh it out. And I'm a big believer in outlining. So a lot of people don't like to outline. They like to just start writing by the seat of their pants and see where it takes them. They don't want to plan too heavily. They think it inhibits the creative process. And that's great if that works for you. That's totally fine. There's no one way to accomplish these things. I think that whatever system you find that works is fantastic. Personally, I need to outline. The first time I attempted National Novel Writing Month, which I think was like 2005 or 2006, I failed miserably at it because I had no plan. I had kind of a vague idea. I started writing. I wrote myself into a corner, and I had no idea what to do next, and I gave up on it. So when I started in earnest in 2009 for my first successful novel, I wrote a very detailed outline of what every chapter was going to be about and what all the characters were about and what was going to happen. And I didn't find that hard because I'm writing towards something. I know what my goal is. I know what I need to accomplish. It's just a matter of getting there. And so I'm a big believer in that. So that's what I've been doing this week, is trying to outline the plot beat by beat, find out everything that happens. And of course, you have to leave some room to be flexible, because you might get inspired in the middle of your writing and want to do something different, and that's totally fine too. But I just think if you have a plan, even if you're willing to deviate from that plan later on, it makes your life so much easier. So what I do is I write biographies for all the characters. I write their names, I write their physical appearance, I write their personality characteristics, maybe how they're related to each other, some backstory for all the characters that I'm going to use in the book. I get all that in my head, and I get all that on paper. And then I go through the plot beat by beat, and I figure out how many chapters I'm going to have. I figure out what's going to happen in each chapter and what order. And that often takes a couple of drafts to get right, because you think you need fewer chapters than you actually need, or you think you need more chapters than you actually need, or you think things are going to be in a different order than they eventually end up being in. But that's what I like to do. The other reason I like to outline a lot is because I hate writing multiple drafts of things. I like to write the draft that is the draft that I'm happy with, and then go back and tweak it a little to make it better. But what I hate doing is starting over from scratch and writing a new draft. I never do that with novels. I never do that with anything, really. I always just try to get it right the first time. And the more you prepare, the better chances you're going to have to get it right the first time. I'm a huge fan of J.R.R. Tolkien. He's one of my very favorite writers, and he worked in exactly the opposite way as I work. He would start writing with no plan and just see where it leads him, and then he'd discard everything and start over and write it again, and then discard everything and start over and write it again. And I just don't have the patience for that kind of work. I admire that he was able to do it that way, but I can't do it. So I very meticulously outline. I get everything in my head of how it's going to go, and I start writing. And then maybe I hit a roadblock, or I hit something that I wasn't expecting, or I come up with a new idea, or I realize that I've left a plot hole in or something and I have to fix it. That's fine, but I'm not starting over from scratch with a brand new draft every time, because I get so bored of writing the same thing over and over again. There's no way I could do it. So that's what I basically do. What else do I do to prepare? I just try to think about the tone I want as much as possible. I try not to be too genre conscious. Like, I know I said this is going to be a horror book, but I'm really not putting a lot of thought into where are the scares going to be? What's going to be spooky? What's going to be not spooky? Have I gone too long without it being scary? I'm not really trying to. I don't know, it feels a little bit emotionally manipulative to write in that way to me. I'm not really trying to do that. I'm trying to just tell the story that I have in my mind. And it should organically, if things go according to plan, there should be scares where I want there to be scares. And that'll be good. But I'm not really trying to think, okay, I need a scare every 30 pages or something like that. That's a little bit too clinical for my approach to writing. I don't really like to do that. I also don't like to stick to one genre. This is part of my, getting bored writing the same thing over and over again. I know there's authors like Stephen King or Dean Koontz or people like that who write the same genre of novel their entire career over and over again. I don't know how they do that. I have a lot of wide-ranging interests, as you know if you watch my channel, in terms of books and literature. And so I like to write different things, and I have different ideas. So sometimes I'll write a fantasy novel, sometimes I'll write a science fiction novel, sometimes I'll write a horror novel, sometimes I'll write just literary fiction, something just a straightforward, intimate story about people. It just depends on what the idea is, and I let the idea lead me as far as it can. So that's kind of my basic preparation. I do as much of that as I can to be ready to go on the 1st of November. It's really important to get a head start, I think, once November rolls around. In order to stay on pace to meet 50,000 words by the end of the month, you have to write about 1,700 words a day. You could do that every single day and you'd be fine. I personally think that's a mistake because, first of all, things come up. You have Thanksgiving in the middle of the month. You have maybe visits with family. You have unanticipated events or emergencies or travel that can come up. You have work that can get in your way and prevent you from writing 1,700 words in a day. And so I like to get a jump start and write as many words as I can in that first week. Try to get ahead of the game. Write 3,000 words the first day. Write 5,000 words the first day. Really get, while you still have that passion and that energy and that excitement, get as much done as you can. Because the other problem is there's a definite toll on your morale as you go along. And there's this kind of thing that's known in the National Novel Writing Month community about the second week. And the second week is brutal. It's been brutal for me every single time I've done this. I've done it 12 times now. Every time in week 2, all of your enthusiasm and your inspiration and your best ideas are gone, and you feel like you are a hack and you don't know what you're doing and you're incompetent and everything you've written is trash and you want to throw the whole thing away and you have no more ideas. That happens to me every single year in week 2, and it happens to a lot of people at National Novel Writing Month every single year at week 2. It's just like, I don't know what it is, but it's that second week is the biggest stumbling block for people. You have to push through it. You have to force yourself through it. But if you've got a head start and you've written a lot of words in your first week, then it makes it easier to get through that in the second week. And then by the third week, you've recovered from that and you start to get excited about your story again, and you start to feel like the pieces are falling into place again. And maybe you're not that terrible of a writer as you thought you were after all. So for people who want to do National Novel Writing Month and who have never done it before, I highly encourage you to do it. First of all, it's a lot of fun, and even if you don't come up with a finished novel, like, you'll get better at writing and you'll accomplish something, so that's really great. But remember that week 2 is going to be awful. Just be prepared for that, and when it hits, don't think, oh, there's something wrong with me, it's just, unique to me. It's everybody's experience, and you have to just push through it and just treat it like a job, treat it like a chore. Say, get up every morning, I'm going to put in my 1,700 words, and then I'm going to go not think about it for the rest of the day. And maybe you even take a day off, but don't take too many days off, because you got to stay on track and you got to keep your momentum going. It's like anything else. You want to build habits, and if you get in the habit of writing every day, it makes it so much easier to continue. Once you get in the habit of taking days off, it's that much easier to take another day off, and then another day, and then another day, and the next thing you know, you haven't written anything in a week, and then the next thing you know, you haven't written anything in a month, and it's very bad. So don't do that. If you absolutely need to take a day off, that's fine, but try to stay on track. And that's why it's so important to get a head start at the beginning of the month and be ahead of schedule, so that when things come up, when your morale crashes, when you get writer's block, you will be able to still stay on track to meet your goal at the end of the month. I really think that's important. I don't do this so much anymore, but if you're new to the community, I really recommend going on the website and signing up with an account. It's free, of course. You can track your progress there. They have neat little charts and graphs you can use to show how far along you've come, and do participate in the forums. Talk to people about your struggles, about your ideas. It's so much easier when you're in the same boat as other people, and they're there to support you, and they're there to help you, and you can realize that you're not alone and that everybody's struggling the same way you are. It can be kind of discouraging. Sometimes you see people who are way ahead of the game. They write 50,000 words in their first week, and they're going for 200,000 words in the month or something, and you think, wow, I'm just so far behind these people. Don't pay attention to those people. Those people are annoying. Just work on your novel and talk to the people who are in the same place you are, and people who are struggling with the same things you are. Talk to them, get advice, share ideas. There's lots of little creative prompts that people give you in these forums too. There's little games that people will play. They say, okay, well, for today's challenge, you have to work an Easter egg into your story. And you're like, I don't have any place in my story for an Easter egg, but now I got to think. I have to be creative and come up with something. And that may lead you off into a new direction if you're stuck, or it may give you new ideas. There's this great saying by Raymond Chandler, I think it is, who said that when you run out of ideas and you're stuck and you don't know what to do, have someone come in through the door with a gun. That's a great way. Why is he there? Why does he have a gun? What's his motivation? But that's a great way to jumpstart that writer's block, is to have someone come in through the door with a gun. Another thing that's very popular among National Novel Writing Month writers is dream sequences. Your narrative is stalled, your characters are boring, you don't know what to do. You can have a dream sequence and just do something completely different, unrelated to your story. Just to flex your creative muscles a little bit and do something that will relieve the monotony of trying to keep your story on track, and just let you be as fanciful as you want to be. And then maybe you can delete it later, or maybe you can work it into the story and make it fit and make it be symbolic. But don't worry about that. Just get it done. Write a dream sequence. There's a great story about a woman, Erin Morgenstern, who wrote The Night Circus. She actually wrote The Night Circus for National Novel Writing Month. And it started out as a completely different story, and she got bored with the story she was writing, so she wrote a dream sequence about a spooky circus, and that became the entire book. So you never know where these things are going to lead you. One of the things they talk about on the forums a lot is to silence your inner editor. I think a lot of the obstacles that people have in terms of writing or finishing what they've written is that they want to correct as they go along. They think, I wrote a sentence that I'm not 100% happy with. I got to go back and fix it. And if you get in the habit of doing that with everything you write, then you never finish anything, because you're constantly revising what you've already written, and you're constantly changing and updating and trying to make it better. And it's better not to do that. It's better just to plow ahead, just put words on paper. That should be your goal. Just put words on paper and, get as many words down as possible. It doesn't even matter if they're good. Don't worry about if they're good. Just write them down. You'll always have time after November to go back and fix things, to rewrite things, to edit, to make things better, to delete things you're not happy with. But if you are constantly second guessing yourself, you're never going to get anywhere. So don't second guess yourself. Turn off your inner editor. Just plow through it, put words on paper, and then, go back and make it better later. But I think you'll be surprised at how once you get going, once you get the juices flowing, you start to write better and you start to come up with better ideas and you start to come up with more creative ideas. And I think that it's a momentum thing is so important, and you don't want to halt that momentum and you don't want to get bogged down in the details. Details are for later. Details are for December, but just put words on paper. And that's the biggest challenge. It's like anything else, to get started. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And once you get going, there'll be no stopping you. And I think it's just so great for people who want to learn how to write and people who, want to write a novel. And maybe your first novel is going to be terrible, and that's fine. I'm sure that many of my novels that I wrote when I was younger, in the first couple of years of this were very bad. But I think I'm getting better, and I think it's like practice makes perfect. The more you write, the better you're going to get at writing. And so you need to just do it. Just put words on paper. That's all you have to do. So I love National Novel Writing Month. I'm a big supporter. I highly recommend that if you are a writer or an aspiring writer, go to NaNoWriMo.org, set up an account, and get writing. Maybe you don't have time to do it this year because it's just a couple days away, but think about it for next year. And I've got to go because I have to go keep outlining my novel because November 1st is fast approaching, and I want to be ready when it hits so that I can produce something that I'm happy with. So thank you so much for watching. I've been Logan Albright, and I will catch you next time.